I'm going to show you how to make this bag. Hey everybody, welcome to the Farmstead Ministries, where we make handcrafted products to help people in need. We want to thank our sponsor, Tandy Leather, for providing us with all the beautiful materials used to make this bag. For the main body of this project, we use Tandy's Old World Veg-tanned side in 5 to 6 ounce. This hide is extremely high quality and really brings out the natural characteristics of the leather. The first thing I do is find the piece of real estate on this leather that I want to use for this bag and trace out the entire template. I'm using an all on a straight edge to mark the leather. Next, I use my round knife to roughly cut out the leather to make it easier to work with. I set that aside and I do the same thing with the pocket. With the main body of the bag in a more manageable size, I can really take my time with a round knife and get perfect edges. It's important to take your time with this step because this bag is symmetrical. If you don't make perfect cuts now, it won't line up during the assembly phase. Continue this process and cut out the pocket of your bag. Next, it's time to prepare the straps. We used an 8 to 9 ounce heavyweight Veg-tanned in 3/4 inches. At this point, I cut out all the strap material I'll need for this bag so I can prep it all at the same time. For the button hook strap, I used Tandy's strap cutter to rip this piece down to a smaller size. For this bag, I want the ends of all the straps to be rounded, so I use a half round punch and punch all the ends of the straps. Again, this bag is symmetrical, so make sure all the straps match each other perfectly. And here's what your straps will look like with all the ends punched. Here are all of the raw materials cut and prepped. The main body in the pocket is ready to be stained, and the straps are ready to be conditioned and edge treated. As with all of our projects, we use 100% solid brass hardware because it looks great and it lasts forever. The next phase of the main body in the pocket of this bag is staining, oiling, and antiquing. At the Farmstead, we mix all of our own stains to create custom colors and one-of-a-kind products. When I apply the stain in small circular motions, covering the entire bag in multiple passes. As it's drying, it'll look splotchy, but it will dry evenly and turn out beautiful. This color combination, we call it classic tan. This classic tan is my personal favorite because it gives a really rich classic tan color, and it also brings out the natural characteristics of the leather. I do each phase of the staining to the main body and the pocket of the bag at the same time. Once the staining is complete, I start to oil the bag. The reason I oil the bag is to add moisture back into the leather. It also conditions the leather and helps protect the leather. Also, it helps the leather last a lifetime. Just like the stain, I add this in small circular motions until the whole bag is covered. After doing it for a while, you'll start to get a feel for how much oil you need to use. And just like the stain, as it's drying, it'll look splotchy, but dry beautifully. While the oil is still wet, next thing we want to do is antique finish the bag. Applying antique finish is one of my favorite parts and also one of my most nerve-wracking parts of the entire project. Because if you mess up this step, there's no going back. This antique finish sits into all the natural characteristics of the leather and gives a beautiful, beautiful finish, showing all those natural marks. Then I continue by applying all these same steps to the pocket of the bag. My camera died while I was finishing antiquing the main body of the bag, but after you apply the antique finish, you want to take a clean rag and rub off all the excess antique finish. And now you'll really start to see those natural characteristics come out of that leather. While the main body and the pocket of the bag are drying, let's move on to edge finishing all of our strap material. The first thing we want to do is edge bevel all edges, top and bottom, of every piece of strap that we have. Edge treating every aspect of this bag does add multiple hours to this project, but here at the farmstead we think it's worth it. The reason why is because of the beautiful look, the smooth feel, and the superior quality it gives to our products. Next step, sanding. For the pocket, we want to round those corners, and for the main body and the pocket, we want to sand down all the edges to remove any stain that might have gotten on them. As you're sanding the edges, make sure to keep those edges at 90 degrees. This will come into play when we bevel these edges later. If you skip the step of sanding your edges will still be smooth, but they won't be as clean and consistent looking. Now it's back to edge beveling all the edges of the main body and the pocket of the bag. Don't forget you need to edge bevel the inside of the bag as well. It's time to wet form the inner pocket. I wet form the pocket before I fold it, so once it dries it maintains that shape and stays nice and flat. While the pocket dries, I move on to edge slicking all the straps of the bag. I begin by adding gum tragacanth to the edges of the Then I use Tandy's edge burnishing machine to slick all the edges. You can slick these edges by hand, but this machine really speeds up the process. Once you've slicked all the edges of your straps, remember to slick the edges of your bag as well. I make multiple passes using my edge burnisher, checking the edges as I go to get the desired smooth finish that I'm looking for. If needed, you can add some more gum trag on there and continue burnishing. This is a slow process, but trust me, it'll be worth it. After all the edges are slicked with a gum trag, you want to get 100% beeswax, give a nice coat to all the edges, and repeat the process. Using the beeswax adds another layer of protection to your edges and makes them nice and glassy smooth. This is what the end result looks like. Oh yeah! Before we condition the straps, we need to add our maker's mark. Here we're using Tandy's heat and printing machine, and heat and printing is one of my favorite aspects of leatherwork. Here's our brand that's going to go on the front handle of the bag. Next, we're going to give our leather a deep tissue massage. We love using Aussie's leather conditioner on all of our products. Conditioning the leather helps moisturize, soften, and protect the leather, which helps it last a lifetime. So get your hands dirty and rub this leather conditioner over every square inch of your bag. Once we apply the conditioner, we let it sit for at least 10 minutes to really absorb into the bag. And after that, take a clean cloth and polish your leather. This conditioner is made with all natural oils and waxes, and it's also a great moisturizer for your hands. Conditioning your leather also gives your final product a beautiful but subtle shine. We are almost at the assembly phase, but before we do that, we need to build out our pocket. For gluing our pockets, we use barge contact adhesive. Then we fold our pocket and get ready to stitch. For punching our stitching holes, we use Tandy Pro's M-Series pricking irons. We use the 3.85mm pricking irons, along with a 0.8mm thread. Punch along both sides of your pocket to get ready for stitching. To get the proper length of your thread, I always measure out 6 times the length of whatever I'm stitching. For all the stitching on this bag, we're using a traditional saddle stitch. We use the saddle stitch for its durability and its clean look. We hand stitch all of our products for many reasons, even though it takes significantly longer. One of the reasons we hand stitch, besides how beautiful it looks, is its durability. With hand stitching, we're able to use a waxed nylon thread, which helps waterproof and protect the thread. And with saddle stitch, each stitch is an individual knot. So if you do cut the thread, the whole thing's not going to unravel like most machine stitching. At the beginning and end of each run of stitching, I backstitch 3 stitches to further protect the ends of the thread. With the pocket sewn up, I go back through, sand down the edges, and then burnish. Sanding the edges and burnishing these layers will make them feel like one smooth piece. How beautiful is that? Here's what the completed interior pocket looks like. And finally, all the leather is prepped and ready for assembly. The first thing we're going to do is punch the holes and attach the straps with solid brass rivets. Thread your rivets through the leather and through your straps. Then you want to add the burrs and drive them down. Then you want to clip off your excess rivets. Once your rivets are clipped, you want to round those rivets to give them a smooth finish. After your handles are attached, it's time to assemble the pocket. First, you want to glue your pocket to the bag, and then with your pricking iron, you want to punch for your stitching. Throw your bag in that stitching pony and saddle stitch the pocket. This step can be a bit tricky because the handles will get in the way of your stitching, but it provides a really clean look with the finished product. With your pocket attached, you need to sand and burnish to get these edges perfectly smooth. Now it's time to prep the main body of the bag for stitching. First, use your wing dividers to mark your stitching lines, and then use your pricking irons to punch all the holes for your stitching, just like we did with the pocket. The last step before we can stitch up the bag is adding the button hook snap closure strap to the front of the bag. We are using the same rivets and the same technique to attach the strap. We finally made it. Time to sew up the main body of the bag. For the main body sew up, I don't use glue. What I do is I take stitching needles and thread them through the holes to hold the bag together. As I stitch, I remove the needles as necessary until the entire bag is sewn up. Here's what it looks like. Next, find a comfy chair because you're going to be here for a while. But the same process as before, start with a few back stitches and saddle stitch the entire length of the bag. Hand stitching the side of the bag like this can prove challenging, but the more you do it, the more you'll get used to it. Most bags are sewn inside out, and then they're turned inside out at the final step. We chose not to do this because we wanted a structured, thick, all-leather bag, and we didn't want to wrinkle the leather as we turn it inside out. But ultimately, it's a stylistic choice, and this is our style. Here's a close-up of our saddle stitching on the side of the bag. Once you finish one side, just continue with this process for the other side. Here's what your bag will look like before we sew up the bottom corners. First, we glue up the corners to hold them in place while we're punching our stitching holes. Then press those corners and line up your edges. Next, we want to mark our lines and punch our stitching holes. This part can be very challenging, but make sure your stitching holes are punched perfectly straight up and down because you will see the stitches on the bottom and the top of the bag. And you guessed it, more saddle stitching. Next, we take our raw edges, sand them down, bevel them, and edge treat them just like we did for all the other edges. On these bottom corners, I do like to hit it with a hand edge slicker because I'm working with a lot of different layers here and I want to make sure everything is perfectly smooth. Now we need to make attachment points on either side of the bag. These are where the shoulder strap will attach to. We are using D-rings that are 3/4 inch in size and 100% solid brass. With the holes punched in our strap material, we want to fold this over the edges of the bag and saddle stitch this in 2 separate rows. This technique is incredibly durable and matches the style of the rest of the bag. We made it to the last step, assembling the shoulder strap. For the long end of the strap, I punch 8 holes spaced 1 inch apart. And on the other end, I use a trigger snap secured by a brass rivet. On the shorter side of the strap, one side has a trigger snap and the other side has a halter buckle, both secured by rivets. And we made it. Once you attach your shoulder strap, the bag is complete. This is our signature bag, the Mary Jane, in honor of my grandmother. Thank you so much for watching. We're the Farmstead Ministries, making handcrafted products to help people in need. To learn more about our mission and our vision, and to check out our products, visit our shop at thefarmsteadministries.com. See you next time.